The other day, I was reading around on Reddit, and I was in one of the psychedelic subreddits. Not sure which one exactly, but I read this comment, and it was a good comment. One of the things they said was, if you have a bad trip or a challenging trip, you should try your best to relate it to something you fear. And that kind of sparked this compulsion in me almost, that I'm like, you know what, tonight I'm going to do that. I'm going to really think about some of the difficult trips that I've had and try to relate it to a fear, like dive really deep. So that's what I did. That night I decided to take some weed edibles and dive deep. Getting high on edibles always gives me like a different angle, like a different mental angle. It feels like a different version of myself almost, but still me.
Keeping it in like someone who's too shy to talk but broadly thinks. Spit the pain out like a shoddy drink. Getting high in a pot to reply to thoughts. A new perspective that's still my own, but we only quasi-synced. Sometimes I feel like my hobby sing my piece one for another. I try to swap, I die my swatch.
Yeah, I wanted to like just monologue with myself about some of the bad experiences I've had, the hard trips I've had, and just figure out the fear behind them. So I ended up having quite a revelation, and I'll just take you through that journey, I guess. So I started it off from a general place. I just wanted to talk about time dilation, because I remember this one trip where I noticed the time dilation, right? It was so intense, and so I kind of started to internally freak out in my mind. Like, it felt like an hour subjectively, but only a couple minutes passed. It's that moment, like, you have your phone or whatever, and you get anxious before looking at the time, because you're like, fuck, like if only 5 minutes passed, I'm gonna freak out. An hour better have passed. Like, you kind of get that experience. Now, from like a logical perspective, I can see time dilation as like a blessing. You know what I'm saying? It's like we get to live longer and experience the moment more. We get to live more life from that subjective perspective, like the subjective experience of time. It's longer, it's pretty awesome. But something about it also kind of freaks me out existentially. So yeah, the sort of the thoughts that come to me when I'm feeling freaked out a little bit are like something irreversible is happening. I can't go back to normal. I'm stuck like this forever. Like, in my mind, I get this feeling, this intuition, this knowledge that my prior reality was just fake. Nothing about it was real. So I really was thinking, why? Like, why do I have the fear when I'm stuck here forever? I can't go back to normal. It's like, what's really the underlying fear there? It's not like, it goes deeper than that. I was thinking that this cannot be the root. Like, this isn't actionable. Like, do I just fear it because I like the way my sober state of consciousness experiences reality? But I didn't think it was that either. It's like, no, there has to be something way deeper than that. So I threw out a lot of theories, like, the uncomfort with a lack of control. That's not it, you know what I mean? Like, the idea of hard determinism doesn't really freak me out, even if I'd prefer free will be a thing. Another one was like the destabilization of my epistemic trust, meaning like my ability to know things, right? That could be described in a more understandable way, like discovering that my previous understanding of reality was incomplete or just completely mistaken and wrong. But again, that wasn't it, because I've been disabused about foundational things in my life many times, and it never gave me existential dread. All right, so I'm ruling out stuff here, and it's good to rule stuff out. You get closer to the real root by discarding things that it might be. No, what really kept coming back to me was that, like, this feeling of being in a very unfamiliar world, and feeling like the world I once knew is gone forever. and I'll never get to experience the people I know in the old world again. Like, for sure, a couple at this point, I was like, oh yeah, definitely a couple of my challenging moments or challenging trips came down to that, so now I'm making a lot of headway, right? So, like once I'm in this state of my reality is gone forever, like a lot of potential thoughts can be had, but one of them that always comes up is like, my family was never real. And that realization makes me very sad and almost feel guilty. Like, it's not quite guilt, but at this point, like, guilt was the closest feeling that I could map it to. But of course, it was something I needed to properly figure out, because guilt, it wasn't guilt. So at this point, I'm thinking, okay, maybe it's just that time dilation makes me think reality is fake, and that everything I lived was fake. And if everything is fake that I can remember, that means everything I've lived, loved, created, and experienced was never real. And like, that hurts, like that shit hurts, and I started off at time dilation because I thought that would just be a short theme. I didn't know it would lead down this road. But clearly, like, yeah, at this point I was like, okay, time dilation probably has nothing to do with it. It's probably not the time dilation. Like, when I say my reality was fake before the trip, like when I'm in Shroom Land and I have this feeling like my reality was fake before the trip, like everything before this trip was fake, this trip is real. Like, that's kind of the feeling, right? Like, everything before this trip fake, this trip and beyond real. It's like the dread, it's not dreadful because I came from the wrong version of reality or whatever, right? It's more like this realization or feeling that I was interacting with non-conscious beings. Like I said, I lived, loved, created for, and experienced things with these non-conscious beings. Like, amazing moments, you know what I'm saying? And the feeling that I experienced them alone, that makes me feel just super sad. And again, there's something like guilt there. At this point, I'm still like, what's this guilt? What's this guilt feeling? It's like we still need to figure out what this guilt feeling is. Okay, so now we're narrowing the fear down a bit more. Right now it seems like it's relational annihilation, right? And when that understanding hit me, like, it gave me a jolt of resonance in my chest and in my belly, a fear of being fundamentally alone in this plane. But this still did not feel like the end of the causal chain. We've progressed, went from time dilation to feeling stuck in this reality forever to realizing that it's some type of fear of being alone. But why? Before I followed that pathway, the word grief came to mind. And it was like, oh shit, it's not guilt, it's grief. When I say it feels like the world I once knew is gone forever, that's fucking grief. Like, if I say I'll never get to experience the presence of my loved ones again, that's grief. When grief clicked, I just related it to the actual real life experiences I've had with grief, like the few times in my life I've lost loved ones or friends, Yeah, it feels very similar to the feeling to this experience on shrooms. That intense, persistent pit in the stomach that makes everything else impossible to pay attention to because it's so sharp. It's like you got a canker sore in your mouth and you can't enjoy food. You can't even pay attention to what someone's saying because it's so freaking stingy in your mouth. But, so we figured out this aloneness shit, the dreadful loneliness, it's like, so now that I connected a lot of these dots, just from the primer, time dilation, I wasn't even like going into any of my challenging moments yet. I wanted to start this freaking exploration off from like a simple place, but this opened up a lot of doors. This opened up a lot of understanding, and created pathways to seemingly all the challenging moments I've had. Maybe not all of them, but a lot of them. So, like, I was thinking about this distinct experience I had, where reality felt real, but I felt like I wasn't going back to reality. And so my thought was kind of like this, everyone I care about and everyone who cares about me, they'll never see me again. I'll never see them again. And I feel selfish because I took this drug that took me away from reality forever. And because of that, we will never see each other again. And there's so many words that were unsaid. There's so many experiences unlived. And that makes me dreadfully sad. So then the word abandonment came to mind. And then it was like, oh shit, so maybe there is guilt. Maybe it's guilt and grief. It's like that's where the guilt comes from, because I feel like I've abandoned them. I'm in a different world now and they can't follow me and I can't go back. So yeah, at this point I'm like, okay, time dilation is not the problem. Like at this point I'm like, well, I'm not scared of time dilation in and of itself. It's just what it leads to sometimes, making reality feel fake. But it's like time loops also trip me out in that way. Even sometimes when I'm sober and hear some near-death experience stories, that shit can make me feel the same way too. That existential dread or whatever, It's a lighter shade of the same feeling. And it's like, fuck, I actually enjoy time dilation when I don't feel reality break. Like I can remember a couple times where I was rejoicing in the time dilation on these trips where I didn't have any of these challenging feelings, I remember even getting bummed out, like, damn, time's going a little too fast, actually. I want it to go even slower. So yeah, I was like, okay, like time dilation is not even close to the root. It's probably the damn leaf on the plant, because it sees the sunlight, and imagine that before, I thought there was something about time dilation in and of itself, but it was just so surface level. It was a smoke screen, so it's like I'm thinking like, okay, maybe connection is the anchor of my reality, or part of it, like my sense of reality and my sense of self is relational. Not sure. I actually don't know why the feeling of aloneness gets to me so bad, but anyway, like when I slip into this fake reality type of feeling, I'm trapped in a different dimension type of feeling, it's like I've lost the place where all my relationships live, and or I abandoned them by accident. Like this is the crux. This is the crux of a lot of these really difficult emotions to deal with. It's like I'm mourning all of my loved ones as if they all died. I'm mourning them collectively all at once. I'm reading this book right now called American Dirt, and I'm only a few chapters in, but the main character, she loses 16 family members in one incident. And I can't imagine that amount of grief, but the closest I can imagine it to is like this feeling I sometimes get on mushrooms. It's like losing all my loved ones at once. My mind reacts and feels as if they all died, or as if I died to them. It's like I feel all their grief too, not just my grief for them, but their grief for me. Like, wow, I never realized this before. Shit is mind-blowing to me. And all this leads me to solipsism. So let's talk about solipsism for a second, because, I see a connection to all of this now, Sometimes I have delusions of reference on mushrooms, and that's when this solipsistic feeling really, really hits me, because it means I'm the only being that exists. Everything exists for me. And that, again, feels like that dreadful loneliness. It's very weird. It's like the Truman Show, but 10 times more scary and surreal and odd. It's like for many people, solipsism is just an intellectual puzzle. But for me, it hits me like a tragedy. Like it's not a thought experiment to me. It's a serious ontological perspective that has massive emotional consequences for me. It's not like, oh wow, that's interesting. I can sit back and just observe. The concept of solipsism, it's like, no, even the slightest inkling that it might be true fucking like gives me a lot of pain, like emotional pain, because it leads to what I've been talking about. Everyone I love is gone, and they never existed. I just think like, what would the point of anything be if no one was fucking real? That's how it feels. It just feels so purposeless. Like if I was the only one that exists. Purpose becomes something that doesn't exist. Like even something like shooting a basketball, like imagining myself shooting a basketball in a world where I'm the only real being feels infinitely more pointless than shooting a basketball in this reality. The reality that I accept and understand when I'm sober, and even most of the time on any substance. Like I don't know how else to describe it. It's just utter pointlessness. Like way beyond any nihilistic feelings I've ever had. Like when I was a late teenager, you know, I had a lot of, like I had that nihilistic depression, you know, when you feel this nihilism that there's no point to anything. That shit's fucking child's play. Like that's bliss compared to the type of utter pointlessness that I feel when I'm convinced solipsism is real. It's like the word void keeps coming to mind. Like even knowing that someone else was shooting at this court before me gives me a sense of comfort. It's like people will use it after me too, and they have before me. But thinking about the opposite, like I'm the only being who has ever taken a shot on this basketball net, and I will be the only one who ever can do it. Like that feels so liminal. Like that liminal space maze with the dimly lit beige office cubicles. Like, you know that image? Like that shit always made me feel that void too. That image always brought me to the void. Like not as strong as in Shroomland, but like shit kind of take me to the void a little bit. Especially the first time I saw it. Anyway, so I feel like this is the root of it. But I think because the fear of being alone is different than grieving, right? And they're both distinct, but they're different, and they're both potent against me, right? So grieving the loss of all my loved ones and forever aloneness. But it always comes up when like this feeling of grief and guilt, right? It always comes up when I get that this won't ever end feeling, you know? Like my brain forgets that this is temporary. You know, you're going to be here for 6 hours at max, you know, but probably only a couple hours in this, you know, diluted headspace. So whenever I feel that, oh my God, I'm trapped here, this shit's never going to end, that's when that grief and that guilt comes in. I made an irreversible mistake. Why did I do this? Type feeling. And so, yeah, you know, as I explored more and more experiences, the pathways were clearing up. I could see pathways connecting all of this stuff together now, right? Like, it seems like now all of my bad trips, or at least parts of the bad trip, the challenging moments, had that component to them. The component of feeling guilty or grieving all my loved ones, or feeling guilty for abandoning them. Like, there was this one trip where we were exiting a forest, and, you know, the end of that forest, because we were in pretty deep forest and it was sunny outside, so it was kind of dark in the forest, but like because when you're on mushrooms, you know, your colors are more saturated, you know. The end of the forest felt like the light at the end of the tunnel. Like it almost felt divine. Like once we make it out of this forest, we made it to the end, we're just gonna feel bliss. But then we saw a hill. We exited the forest, but now there's a hill. We exited at the bottom of a hill. So then I kind of felt hopeless, like, oh shit, we didn't make it. We have to climb this hill. And as we got closer to the top, it felt like, yeah, once we're there, we made it. But then I get there and I realize, oh shit, we didn't make it. And I felt hopeless again because we saw another forest at the end of this plain. So we get to the top of the hill and there's a plain, and at the end of this plain there's another forest. So it's like, we got to go there. But then I realized I'm in like a loop here. Like everything felt recursive here. It's like this is just gonna keep happening over and over again. And every time that hopelessness came, it got stronger. It's like, I know now this second forest, we're gonna get in there, and it's not gonna be the end. The end is gonna be when we make it through the forest and at the next plane and climb the next hill. You know, there's no end. All we were doing, I felt, was going further and further from home. And it felt like, okay, sure, we're leveling up spiritually or some shit. I don't even know how to explain it. It just felt like we were overcoming all this stuff, and we were, I guess because we were kind of climbing a hill and we could look down at the forest where we were in. So it's kind of like very metaphorical. Like, we came all the way up here. We're at a different level. We left this realm. This is what it felt like to me. We left the earthly realm, and now we're in this spiritual realm. We're not at the end, but we're on a journey there. But then that guilt came again. I felt like, well, I'm not bringing all my loved ones with me. Like, I'm abandoning them. Like, I felt like, no, we have to go back. Like, I can't leave them. So that's what that felt like. Like, connecting it to what I was saying before, abandonment. And then, towards the end, because I at this point I felt like I understood the fear or the feelings like in a much more potent way. Like, next time I trip, I can have these sort of thoughts in mind and see where it takes me, kind of having this meta awareness now. Because before I didn't really understand this dynamic, but moving further and further from home. And it's like, it seems like in my emotional where home isn't necessarily a place, it's more just like coexisting with loved ones or something like that. So it seems like my mind has learned to associate altered reality with that separation, and then that separation causes grief or guilt or both. That's the association change. So I don't know. I mean, it was a really interesting deep dive for me to go into. If you're into this vibe, it's a couple snippets from my album Art Flow. Links in the description.